My name is Amber Loniger. I'm an attorney and I'm CEO and founder of Purple Circle Consulting. Started my career at Vicente, went on to work for Trulieve in-house, and really started Purple Circle with the goal of bringing accessible and affordable services to the industry. I'm so pleased today to be joined by these panelists. We're going to talk about investing in social equity. This is definitely a complicated subject for sure. A lot of nuances here, but today we're going to take the opportunity to highlight some success stories. I have with me Michelle Ringgold. She's a CPA, and I'll get all of my notes out because there's so much to talk about with these folks. But she's the owner of Galaxy Labs, which is one of the first vertical social equity cannabis companies here in Illinois, including a craft grow and a dispensary. So doing just incredible things in addition to her CPA and MBA and all the wonderful things that she has. And then we've got Akil Parnell, co-founder of UMI Farms, another social equity craft grow here in Illinois. And you guys are also getting a dispensary started, is that right? Yeah. And you've got some operations in other states too. Chicago Normal, Social Equity Coalition, like the list goes on and on with these folks. And then we're really grateful that Representative Ford could join us today, Illinois State Rep. I think you've been in the legislature for like 15 years. Like you small business champion. 18. Woo! I can't, and those three were important, those three were important. But just a champion for small business. We worked together. We were actually outside of Benzinga last year doing a press conference outside about social equity businesses and some issues that they were facing. So just a champion for small business. He's also the chair of the House Working Group on Cannabis and some other working groups focused on minority-owned businesses. So just so thankful that all of you could join us today, and thankful to all of you for taking some time out and focusing on this discussion. It's really important. But I think first here today we're going to talk about what is social equity? And Representative Ford, we'd love your thoughts here. And of course, social equity is, different state to state. Illinois has defined it legislatively. Some of those goals have not necessarily come to fruition, and we were talking about that outside. But what is social equity to you?
To me, thank you for having me on the panel, and thank you all for sticking with Illinois throughout all of the challenges of realizing what social equity was intended to be. Before it all started, Akil, he had no gray hair, and he had a high top fade. Now he lost his hair and he's gray, and hopefully things are getting better for him.
It's all true.
So what Illinois intended social equity to be was not. We didn't want it to just be to regulate cannabis, but it also was supposed to right the wrongs from the war on drugs, as we all heard, and to make sure that individuals that were hardest impacted by the war on drugs were able to do business and sell, grow, and make money and reinvest in their neighborhoods that were hardest impacted by the war on drugs, like the west side of Chicago, like the south side of Chicago. So social equity was supposed to be about fairness and justice in this space. And I don't know if we've realized fairness and justice yet, but like America, we continue to fight for a more perfect union.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michelle, would you like to speak to that from an applicant's perspective?
Yeah. From my perspective, it should be a program that's designed to support equal opportunity in the cannabis industry. It's also not only for the cannabis businesses, but for employment, giving that opportunity to low-income individuals, as well as those communities that are most impacted. And it should be a fair distribution of resources and opportunities. That's what it means to me.
Yeah, absolutely. The background here in Illinois, I think Illinois really has tried to serve as a leader in social equity, and one of, I think, the first program that was adopted legislatively. So lots of strides made here for sure, and lots more progress to come. Okay, Akili, I'd love for you to talk about why is social equity important in the cannabis space?
Yeah, I mean, it's important for a lot of reasons. From a policy perspective, as a state and as a society, if we're deciding that we're going to legalize a plant that has been used to criminalize, demonize, and extract wealth from communities, especially the most vulnerable communities in our country, then it's important that they have an opportunity to repair those communities. You know, I'm not under the assumption that cannabis is going to like fix all of the problems in these disinvested communities, but certainly the industry has an obligation to reinvest because so much has been taken from those communities because of prohibition. And so now that we're legalizing it, creating this multi-billion-dollar industry, the folks from those communities need to have opportunities, meaningful opportunities to build wealth, repair their communities, and participate. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle, did you have anything to add?
Only thing I really have to add is social equity is the right thing to do. I mean, that's just the bottom line. It's a remedy as it relates to the harm on, ongoing war on drugs, and it really is the right thing to do.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think when you're talking about corporate social responsibility too, especially in this industry, it can encompass things like that. This is a broad concept that we're just starting to really understand. So super important. I'd love to talk a little bit, less from a policy perspective, but more just from an investment perspective. We're all here. This is a capital conference. Every business has its challenges. But why is social equity cannabis a good investment idea? And Michelle, I'll go to you first.
All right, let's talk about the challenges first. I mean, obviously, the biggest challenge is access to capital. But at least for Galaxy is a craft grow. We're in about 160 dispensaries right now. We had to purchase our own dispensary, as well as we have a transportation license. And I think the biggest challenge, access to capital, but closing the gap. I mean, when this first started here over 10 years ago, larger players, cultivators got a cultivation, they got 10 dispensaries, they're in the medical and recreational, and just really, it's been a challenge to compete because they have such a head start. But we still think it's a good investment. I wrote down a few little notes, and the reason why is, number one, we still feel that the industry is very impactful. Leading marketing companies are showing that between 2023 and 2030, that 14.20% growth annually over year over year. So, that's still a great opportunity. It supports health and healing. That's very important. And the bottom line is that there's still opportunity for potential earnings that can be very beneficial.
Yeah, absolutely. Akili, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think social equity businesses are a good investment in Illinois for a lot of reasons. One is Illinois is still a great market to be in general. And so if there's a pathway to get social equity businesses up and running in a market that's not oversaturated or anything, that's a good opportunity. That's why we're able to raise capital, to be honest. And so it's a good opportunity from that perspective. And then, too, social equity businesses are bringing in new brands. And we know with CPG, at the end of the day, the brands, that's really where a lot of the value is going to lie in the future, especially looking into interstate commerce and all this other stuff, which is way off, but we're going to get there at some point. And so the opportunity for brand building, because social equity brands are going to bring brands that connect with consumers in ways that the existing brands just honestly can't. And it's going to be for a lot of different reasons, or the diverse perspectives, or a longer history of being in the cannabis culture and connecting with folks that are really sort of shaping the cannabis culture in Chicago. And so we see brands, like Lab 11, like Galaxy, other folks that reflect that. And so that's a huge opportunity that only social equity businesses, or mostly social equity businesses, are going to offer.
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely. Yeah.
Illinois, as a policymaker and one that look for ways to grow revenue without being regressive, the more social equity licenses that we could get on market, the more tax revenue we get.
Yeah.
So that's important to note, that Illinois leaves a lot of money on the table because we're not supporting social equity the way we should, and not helping them get into business as fast as possible. So we're losing revenue from that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was truly the intent of this program, was to build this model that other states could follow that really incorporated these social equity operators. So yes, all very, very important. And I think a great segue, Michelle, I'd love for you to speak about, why do consumers really care about social equity? There isn't a ton of data around, why consumers make the product purchases that they do. But, we believe strongly that they care about social equity. They care about criminal justice reform. And I'd love for you to speak to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a proven track record, maybe not in cannabis, but in other industries. Those brands, those businesses that support the cause, that believe in diversity, inclusion, are the ones that, are successful. I also think that, activism is very important, buying power. African Americans and Hispanics are one of some of the larger consumers that that buy cannabis. So certainly we need to support them. And I believe that consumers understand that brands have a social and a corporate responsibility to do the right thing and improve our environment, our social environment. So that's my perspective on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Akili, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, consumers care about social equity for a lot of reasons. I mean, you look at other industries, there's conscious consumers. They're not just price conscious. It's not even just, product, value consciousness. There's also like who's making this product. Consumers do care about that. Not every consumer is necessarily going to push them one way or another, but for a lot of consumers it is. And it's part of the brand building story. If there's like a message and a meaning behind what you're doing, consumers like that. I like that. I'll pay a little bit more for, something that's maybe organic or, is helping the environment in some way, or advancing racial justice. Like people do care about that. And consumers care about it because they want to see products that also reflect their values, that also, sort of reflect their experiences. And a lot of the social equity communities, and be honest, like Black and brown folks drive a lot of popular culture in America. And so you look at brands, especially in sports and entertainment, you see who's driving a lot of what is seen as cool. And that should be reflected in the cannabis industry the same way it has been in the unregulated market for 30 years.
Absolutely.
And what I'd like to add, I remember when we launched our first product here in Illinois in February, being able to tell our story. I grew up in Roseland. I was a part of that war on drug. I'm not afraid or ashamed to tell you that I have a son that, was impacted by cannabis. And because of that, getting that higher, felony record, that impacted his ability to support his family. So, I just can't tell you being able to tell that story within, maybe 90 days. My husband, Rick, is in the audience. We were in about over 120 stores because people really do care about that story and who we are.
Yeah, absolutely. And Representative Ford, I don't know if you heard from community members about their desire for diverse products, price competition, social equity, brands, presence in the marketplace. But anything to add to that?
Well, I think every community would like to, given the way we set up the Cannabis Act in Illinois, allowing for businesses to be set up in certain communities create jobs. It creates an economic opportunity for those communities. So one, they want to have clean cannabis. They want to be able to shop in their neighborhoods. They want to be able to work in their neighborhoods. And I think that it sort of drives at what the intent was to make our communities safer, to make sure that people know what they're getting when they buy cannabis. Right now, with all the fentanyl being sold and laced in different types of drugs, people don't know what they're getting. So, not to mention, we also use some of the tax money to put back in the community for social services. So, communities know that the revenue from the cannabis sales goes right back to provide grants for nonprofits in their neighborhoods. So they want to close down some of those or open up some of those abandoned buildings and put in there a place that's thriving. And when you put a cannabis space in a community, it's going to drive other businesses. Not saying that people that smoke cannabis is going to want some food or some other stuff, but it's going to automatically be a place that draws and attracts other businesses. So I think people understand that.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that because there is definitely some truth to that. Where our craft grow facility is in a small town called Richton Park. We took over a Save a Lot grocery store. That particular strip mall was pretty much dead, empty. It was only 2 other tenants in that space. When we moved our craft grow in and our dispensary, now we have 15 other businesses in that space. There's more jobs. I mean, just alone, our craft grow and our dispensary has created 60 new jobs. So you're absolutely dead on. Thank you.
Absolutely. And we heard in the keynote this morning, how this industry really has an obligation to establish diverse workplaces, to support criminal justice reform. And I think all of this ties into that really nicely, understanding, that we're truly on the cusp of something great here, and that we play a large part in making sure that the repair is done to the harms that these families have encountered. No, thank you so much for all of that. And I think especially Akili and me coming from, big cannabis to, like, I was the former corporate counsel at True Leaf, so I've seen all of these things from all angles, and can definitely say that this is an important effort. But yeah, I would love for Akili, maybe you first, and then Michelle, to talk about what types of investment opportunities are available in the social equity space.
Yeah, it's honestly, in general, the same sort of investment opportunities you see from any other business, except there's that social mission aspect to it, and new voices and new folks being brought in. But dispensaries were prioritized in the social equity program, dispensary licensing, craft growers, transport licensees. In addition to brands, I think that, our view of social equity, especially from a CSR perspective for companies, be broader than just the license categories. There's also brands and ancillary businesses. But yeah, I mean, that's the opportunity. And then there's also the reinvestment opportunity too, reinvesting in the communities that have been harmed through the business. And, that's jobs, that's, supporting nonprofits and all that stuff. So a ton of opportunities, and also opportunities in certain cases in different states to be, at the forefront of the new industry. New York prioritizing dispensary licenses for social equity folks, stuff like that, or like unique investment opportunities that you don't always get in the regular licensing rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Michelle, anything to add?
Keely nailed it, but any type of investments, I mean, the social equities need help with construction. They need help with startup. They need help with expansion. But let's talk specifically Galaxy Labs. We're in phase 2 of our construction, have an opportunity to be the first social equity to have full 14 square feet canopy. We're in 160 stores. We need help. We have funding opportunities within our own organization. So if you know someone, have them contact me.
Yes.
What's the best way?
I hear you have your checkbook with you. I think I heard that, right?
Because if you don't ask, you have to speak up.
I love it. This is what it's all about, folks.
Cultivation for $238,000 in New Jersey.
Okay.
And keep me around for other people that need money.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you. That's awesome.
They do grow good weed. I can speak.
Yeah. That's the thing, man.
Yeah.
You're getting quality. You're getting
and we
an
appreciate
incredible
you.
determination and drive to
we
take their
appreciate
rightful
you.
part in this industry. No, thank you so much, Michelle. Anything else?
That's really
Good?
it. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
awesome.
for your card, sir.
Yes, of course. No, yeah. Okay, well, we're getting towards the end here. Michelle, I'd love to speak with you about how we can integrate independent social equity companies into the regulated cannabis supply chain in a profitable and sustainable way, and maybe some of the roadblocks to getting there.
Well, I think I started off by saying that our larger firms have had over 10 years of an advantage in the market, right? And for us, getting, maybe 2 or 3 dispensaries. How did we get our dispensary? We had to purchase it, $2.5 million. That took a big chunk out of our working capital. But we understood that in order for Galaxy to have a fighting chance, we needed to be vertically integrated. We needed to have throughput. So it's so important for us to at least get 1 dispensary. I am looking for at least 2 to 3 more. I'm praying that legislation will somehow find a way to at least give us a fraction of what the other, cultivators have gotten, even if we had an opportunity to get 2 or 3 dispensaries. Another thing, and I know there was a bill that was killed by, some folks, but being able to sell medical in our dispensaries, my God, we're trying to compete, we're trying to survive, and not being able to sell both recreational and medically, it's just really, really harming us. So, I hope that, legislation and folks like Representative Ford, who's been a champion, a true champion. I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for some of his efforts. So we certainly appreciate that, but we have so much more to do. So much more.
Actually, snaps to that. Snaps to that. Thank you so much. Yeah, Akil, anything to add to that?
No, I think Michelle covered it. Honestly, I think that the other stakeholders that, sort of don't consider themselves social equity, the social equity folks, we work together, we work on advocacy and all that stuff. They need to be intentional about supporting us, listening to us, and engaging with us in the legislative process. I've been involved, definitely, I'm an owner, but I was an advocate before I'm on the license, working on this social equity policy. I was also, I was a corporate attorney, but I was also a civil rights attorney for a bit, working on these issues. And there was always a disconnect between the existing operators, folks in power, and communications with us about direct communications about which policies sort of make sense. And now that we have folks that have gone from advocates to, business owners, like if we can get on the same page without having to hear from somebody else that, they're thinking this, we're thinking this. Let's just sit down and have those conversations. We can make a lot of progress.
Yeah. I'm a firm believer that the pie is so much bigger than what any of us could imagine, and once we sort of just really remove all these restrictions and open up access, and that's even what you were touching on, like patients having more access to more diverse products, like these are positive things that we absolutely need. Representative Ford, anything to add there? You good?
I support what they fight for, and I tell you, it's just important that legislators listen to the business owners and operators at this point, especially now that they've gotten into the business. They should have a say, and they should help us drive public policy along the way. And those that are struggling to scale up, we should listen to them and find out exactly why they're struggling to scale up. There are people right now that have what they need to scale up, but the state prohibits them from selling one of their licenses that can actually be able to open up one of their dispensaries. That's a problem. We actually do harm to the cannabis industry in Illinois because we don't allow it to be the American way.
Absolutely.
And it's unfortunate. I just hope that we get out of the way of what this was intended to be and allow for social equity to grow and compete.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that, Representative Ford. Okay, we're getting towards the end here. Last one. What does the future hold for social equity? Akili, I'd love for you to touch on that first.
Yeah, what does the future hold? I can't predict the future. Hopefully there's some good things in there. I think new states are learning. Well, sometimes new states are learning from other states' mistakes. Sometimes they're not. But I'm hoping that, the states that are left definitely learn the lessons that, from the other states. And then for the folks that are operating in the states that are legal now, hopefully we can continue to work and improve the social equity programs that are in place. There's still opportunities to provide capital both on the retail and the production side. So, those state grants are critical, county grants, all those things are super helpful. And we can really focus on the needs the things that social equity operators need the most, according to what we're saying, as opposed to people just making up other stuff. Then social equity can, I'm not going to say we're going to, completely accomplish everything that we set out to, but end up with a solid program and a diverse industry.
Yeah, no, I heard from someone recently that, the war on drugs got decades of resources and staff and funding to prop it up. And until a social equity program gets the same, we cannot say that it has failed, right? This is very early on in this journey. If you look at the journey of alcohol out of prohibition, it's decades later that they're still dealing with some of these issues legislatively. Like, we are so early on in this process. So I just wanted to share that. But Michelle, did you have any thoughts on what the future might hold?
I agree. I don't have a crystal ball, but I come from a family that you have to believe it and then speak it into existence. And, what I believe, that folks like legislation, Representative Ford and others, they will keep fighting for us, and they will continue to change the laws and efforts to get this playing field a little bit more evenly. For Galaxy, I hope that we are, the number one brand in the country, let alone in Illinois. And we need you guys' support for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And Representative Ford, probably you might have the crystal ball maybe, but
Well, I can tell you.
what are we looking at in session?
We're looking
coming
at
up?
a more fair system, more
great.
diversity in the industry. There's no doubt that Illinois will get better and better, and they will be in Forbes.
All right.
Absolutely. No, it's very
You
true.
heard it right here.
Yeah, it's happening.
You heard it here
It's
first.
happening. No, that's great. And one thing I love about Illinois' program, years ago, back in 2019, they built in this disparity study process to identify issues that have come up in the establishment of the program in a hope to fix those issues down the road. So even at the very beginning of this program, the lawmakers knew, like, this isn't going to be perfect. We're probably going to have to revisit some stuff. Let's build something in to equip us to do that. So, well, just thank you all so much for participating, and thank you all for being here. Thank you so much. Yeah, no, kudos to you guys. And I think we're pretty short on time, but do we have any questions from anybody that I can?
Yeah, we can do 5 to 10 minutes. To your point that you mentioned earlier, like in order to in order to support your brand, and because I want to support the new licensees. I am a medical patient, and I had to go to one of the 55 medical stores instead of your store to pick up your product. So I know that some of that profit goes your way, but not all of it. And that I just wanted to underscore your point. You had a powerful point, and in case people didn't understand, like,
Yeah.
I'm a medical patient that wants to support you, and I had to go out of my way to find a specific shop.
Yeah. And what's really weird is that some of the dispensaries in the state of Illinois, the state inspectors are allowing them to sell our product on the medical, and some aren't. So we really just need to get clarity on that. And then even for our dispensary, we can't sell medical. So we really need those laws to, be changed to be fair.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Cole, for highlighting
Thank
that.
you.
Did we have another question back here?
Yeah, I guess my question would probably be for Representative Ford. You said something about diversity, and I think, say for instance, through the business I created and other ancillary businesses, like, there's opportunity in not just, these specific licenses that people are clamoring for right now, which is retail and dispensary. I think there's a big opportunity in, say for instance, hospitality, which is more of the lane that I do. And, we don't need, or there aren't such capital requirements to set up facilities or things to have safe spaces in the community where we can consume this plant, because they've made it legal for people to sell the plant, but it's still very difficult for people to access safe spaces to consume this plant. And I'm just curious, what do you think are the opportunities that exist, or is there anything in the works right now to really kind of help build that out in Chicago specifically?
Well, I think people want it. It's just a matter of people fighting for it. You build a
We'll talk.
coalition, and yes, build a coalition. These people up here will help you. Have you been to Springfield? So that's where you go. You go to Springfield, you go to City Hall, you go to Cook County, you get to know the members, and you make it happen. It's truth to making it happen, and you know, the fight for social equity wasn't easy. They made it happen. You know, I think that the way the bill was implemented, if they didn't fight, they wouldn't be up here. So just like anything worthwhile, you have to fight for it. And so if you're ready to sign up, I think they'll help you, because we want social consumption sites. We want these sites. We want to be able to have places where people could go and enjoy cannabis.
And one thing I'd like to point out is this shouldn't have to be tied to a retail location. We already know it's very difficult to get those licenses, so to make that a condition of getting one of these consumption spaces, that's.
Let me just make it clear that even if we want it, we still have to deal with communities.
That's right.
Communities may not want it. And so everybody has to make the case. And so you may want it, and it may be the right thing to do. But if the communities in the city, if they are against it, it won't happen. I mean, I would tell you, it would be good if you put together an advisory referendum for the ballot. It could get on the ballot for Chicago. That takes a strong push, but you could pull it together. And that would be during the time of the next election for mayor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go to
Could I
Scott.
just add something from my experience? So, my name is Scott Jordan. I have been financing cannabis businesses since 2009 in Denver. And I financed over 85 different businesses, including some of the largest names in the industry. There's such an enormous opportunity in other areas besides dispensaries, besides cultivation, besides manufacturing. Now is the time for people with software knowledge, with ERP knowledge, with other things that could be beneficial to the industry. I would love for social equity applicants to lead that charge. The industry needs a lot of different things. And it's not capital intensive like cultivation is or like retail is, so.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. And I think we had one back here. Yeah.
So I have a question for Representative Ford. As I see it, the biggest stumbling block for a lot of dispensary owners for social equity is the inability to sell shares after receiving their license. And this seems to be the biggest hindrance to actually getting open and operational. So I'm curious if you can discuss the state of play politically and the probability of getting a legislation passed that would allow some percentage of shares to be sold, because that is kind of the American way, as you mentioned before.
Yeah, actually, there's a bill for that, and I believe strongly that when you have business, I don't think government should impede businesses from growing, and that's exactly what it does. You're forcing people to stay in a situation that they can't afford, which means you're forcing them to fail. You know, if the federal government doesn't respond and allow for people to borrow money and to build out their businesses and grow and scale up, then some of these social equity people will lose their licenses. And the state knows it. The state knows that they will lose their licenses, and then it'll go to another social equity winner, and they'll lose it too, because where are they going to get the money from? Yeah. So there is a bill, just so you know, if you want to join the effort to try to help people sell shares, bring in investors. I think that it will happen, though. That part is going to happen.
Can I add something? I know it was really tough when we purchased our dispensary. You're absolutely right, because what we had to agree to, I told you what the purchase price was. Then it cost $1 million to do the construction. We had to do all of this up front because the license is not, the people that owned the license, they were not able to sell the license. That's a lot of trust. $3.5 million, to buy the license, do the construction, and then submit to the state to get approved. Can you imagine how many folks out there can make that deal work?
Yeah, it's impossible. Yeah, no, great points, everybody, and thank
I
you.
had another question for you, Rev Ford. Again, I want to thank you. I know a lot of people thank you. I thank you a lot. So
Yeah.
you saved a lot. But
Yeah.
my question to you is, what Michelle was talking about as a medical patient, this is honestly such a sinful thing to me as well, that people can't go anywhere and get their medical products. And I know that bill got messed up, but I just wondered, what does it look like for this veto session? I know it's short, but what do we see going on? What's going on?
I think that what'd you say?
Do we all need to come?
Yeah, I think we all need to come.
down.
I think
Calm down,
Bob
just breathe.
Morgan has been working hard on it, so I think that there is going to be an agreement. There's no reason why we should not allow it. So
Yes,
it's the right thing to do. I think that the industry leaders, I would say, they, why they don't want it. And so that's the challenge. But I think that if we just talk about social equity and justice and fairness, then I don't know how long they could fight it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just don't let up.
So you think this
I don't know about veto, but it could happen in lame duck.
They told us it couldn't happen last veto.
Right.
And it did.
Because we don't know how long we'll be in session, but lame duck could very well be, which is January.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I envision consumers, medical consumers, if we can all band together and 5,000 of us show up, you know what I'm saying? We got to make some noise here because it really, really doesn't make any sense. Why can't we offer medical, to serve medical consumers?
Amber and Michelle, you're right. Here's the problem with getting something done. There's just so much to do.
Yeah.
And there's everybody's being pulled in different directions, and then you can't focus on one. And that's when we run into a problem and the bills die because everyone wants what they want in the bill, and then we get nothing.
Yeah. And this isn't exclusive to Illinois. This is happening all over the country. I'm from Colorado, and there's, various parties in Colorado that participate in the legislature, and they all have their own perspectives and priorities. So, coming together, I think, is really important. And just to highlight something that Michelle hit on, so here recently, medical dispensaries have been given permission in Illinois to get adult use products from social equity operators and sell those products to patients in their medical dispensaries.
Some of them.
But some of them on a one-off basis. But adult use dispensaries do not have permission to sell anything to medical patients, to sell medical products to medical patients. So there's this fracture in the industry that's happening, and it's very nuanced, but patients deserve access at every dispensary. Every dispensary deserves the right to sell their products to medical patients. They're not any different than one another.
Yeah, and they're no different in the product. You just heard this medical patient said that he tried to get Galaxy product and had to go somewhere else to get it. That's ridiculous.
I asked the state, and they said it's because they are one of the original 55 dual-use licenses. Every dispensary that opened after 2020 is not a dual-use license.
But social equity is supposed to be a fair distribution of resources and access.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're probably out of time, but thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you to my panelists here for being here today. I really appreciate it.